everyone, and welcome to the Sedona International Film Festival. I'm Carol Kahn, and we're coming here live from the Sedona Rouge Hotel. And with me today, we have two filmmakers from the film Prodigy, Brian Vidal and Chris Haughey.
Alex
Haughey, sorry. I'm like trying to get it right.
I'm worried about the last name.
Yeah, the last name was, remember to pronounce it Haughey.
You got that part.
I did. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And tell me a little bit about your film.
Well, Prodigy, it's a psychological thriller, and it's sort of the story of a psychologist who's brought into this military compound in order to evaluate their most dangerous patient. And when he gets there, he discovers that this patient he's supposed to evaluate is a 9-year-old girl who's kind of equal parts genius and sort of sociopath. And so as the story progresses, he is trying to figure out how deep her evil goes and peel back the layers of sort of what makes her tick and sort of how dangerous she can be.
Now, how did the whole entire idea for this film come about?
Well, originally I came up with the idea as part of a competition for the screenwriting blog that I follow, and it ended up winning the logline contest, and it was something I just sort of stuck in my back pocket, something I always thought, like, okay, this is an interesting idea, but Alex and I had worked together ever since we met at USC, and basically the idea, we came together, we decided we wanted to work on a feature, and then we started tossing out ideas.
We had worked on a lot of small projects, and they were all projects where I like to say we kind of learned to really make something out of nothing, and we got really good at taking shoestring budgets and making something out of them that people were always kind of turning their heads and saying, like, whoa, that was better than I thought it was going to be. And so we figured we should really apply this to a bigger canvas, and that's why we both always wanted to work in features. And so when we started talking about the idea, we wanted to do something that we could do within our means and make really good. And so when Brian kind of told me this idea, I really latched onto it. We both really kind of connected on it, and it started rolling from there, and it really kind of came out easy after that. We outlined it really quickly, finished a first draft of the script pretty quick.
Yeah, it was within a month or two.
And just kept working on it more and more until we finally got it to the point where we were ready.
Now, this particular thriller involves a young girl, and she is how old?
At the time, she was 10. In the movie, she's 9 years old, and so we had originally tried to get someone younger because it's just we felt like someone with sort of that amount of youth, especially in sort of a Hannibal Lecter type role, is really creepy and really sort of intense. And when Savannah came along, she was just perfect, and we loved her, and so we just thought, let's go with her. She's great, and so.
It was interesting. We originally wrote the role for a boy, and we had done some auditions, several days worth of auditions with the boys we brought in, and we were feeling okay about a couple, but no one that we were really sold on. And so we sat down and had a discussion and said, there's no reason we couldn't change the script pretty easily and have it be a girl and open that up and widen our net a little bit. And when we did, the first day we opened it up to girls, Savannah submitted, and she sent us this video, and we were both like, holy cow.
Yeah, we were blown away immediately.
Only somewhat disappointed that the girls were way better than the boys.
That is so true. So tell me, is there a little bit of a story behind Savannah?
Yeah, Savannah, she's actually a local, she's from Sedona originally.
Sedonite?
Sedona?
Sedona?
Sedonan.
Yeah. She'll explain when she comes up, but she was originally from Sedona, and then I think she moved out to Los Angeles to pursue acting. And
and when we found her, she submitted a tape, I remember, and from the first time we watched it, we were both like, oh wow, this is somebody, like, she submitted on the first day, and we then did some auditions with girls, but we kind of had set the bar kind of high there. And when she came in and did an audition for us, I remember we were both kind of like, this first instinct. We were a little worried that we were just kind of jumping at the first person that sent us a good audition tape, but when she came in, she was still so good. And I mean, everyone who, I think the best compliment that we've gotten on the movie thus far from people who aren't like close friends who know a lot about the movie are everyone is, the first thing they say is like, where did you find that girl? And we knew that the movie relies so much on that role and that part that if we didn't find somebody that could do it, we were kind of sunk.
Yeah, we were sunk.
So
I feel like that was sort of the first time we knew that we actually had a movie, was when we found Savannah. It was sort of like oh, we can actually make this. Because we were definitely skeptical that we'd be able to find someone who could carry the weight of the
Someone
movie
so young, right.
at that age. And so we were really thankful for Sedona, or for Savannah, coming from Sedona. Yeah, obviously. Clearly that's where I was going.
Well, I didn't get to see the movie yet, but
Okay.
I have watched the trailer, and it did remind me of Silence of the Lambs, but with a child, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can watch this. It scared me.
Well, it's
yeah,
good.
we have some scary elements in it, but it's a much more of a kind of suspenseful, scary, and we really like, and we've definitely played up those kind of horror elements in our marketing and everything. It's just a really striking image to see a young 10-year-old freckle-faced, red-headed girl strapped into a straitjacket, locked onto this chair and kind of really restrained in such a way. And we thought that striking image was something that we could really use as kind of a catalyst and a jumping off point for, the rest of the movie, which is really a lot more about peeling back the layers of what that is and what's going on with this situation and how it came to be so strange and odd.
Well, it also seems like the storyline is a chess game between the doctor who was working with her and Savannah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we really keyed into early in the process. Is we actually have a chess game in the movie, and so we sort of set up, this game back and forth between the psychologist and the patient Ellie, who they're basically sort of trying to outwit the other person throughout the process of the story.
Right, she's trying to kind of run him out of the room, and he's really just trying to get to the bottom of what's actually going on with her. And the chess game is a really good, just analogy that we kind of built the movie around. And that scene is kind of the pivotal scene that kind of turns everything when they actually play chess against each other. And she, being so smart, thinks she kind of has the advantage, and he actually uses the game as a tool to kind of get a little deeper into what's going on with her. So it works out really well.
Now, you're both writers on the film. How difficult is it to actually write dialogue for a film like this?
It came pretty naturally, I think, especially when working with someone else. You can sort of bounce ideas off each other, and if I write something that's stilted or isn't working, he'll definitely call me out on it, and has many times.
Yeah, we both
we'll
are both very protective over our own work separately, and so when we come together, it's good. It's actually reassuring because someone was telling us the other day they were worried about us because they heard us bickering about something at one point. But when we bicker, that it always comes out stronger on the other side. And so it was interesting because neither of us had ever written something like this in a collaborative way
No,
before.
for sure.
So it was a really good experience because, especially on this movie, because it's broken down into really two kind of sides. And so we were each able to kind of take a side. There's a side where he's in with the girl, and then he comes out and talks to the people that are observing this. And so we were able to each kind of take a side and go off and do something. And then when we put it together, that's when we really started, like Brian was saying, bouncing stuff off of each other and revising together, which was a much easier process than I think sitting and trying to write lines together would have been. It worked out really well.
With the bickering, it would have been tough to get
very
through,
long, right?
3 pages, let alone a whole script. But the process worked really well.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is your first collaboration between the two of you?
No, we actually started collaborating.
Yeah,
Our first
time ago.
first
10 years ago.
probably year at film school.
Yeah.
We were actually, neither of us were in the film school at that time. We were
Yeah,
both
we were
just
doing
part of the
stuff, kind of shooting with a handy cam in the backyard.
Yeah.
basically.
And I was an actor in our first collaboration.
That's right, you were.
Which is just the worst.
No
but,
one will ever see.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, from there I kind of took a more technical path in terms of schooling, whereas Alex took more of a sort of crit studies analysis approach. And so, I learned all the tools, and then we'd get together and we'd create a project. And our first sort of long project was this film noir like half an hour long film noir.
Right.
And Alex starred in it.
But I was the actor.
Yeah,
That's
he
right.
was the actor that time.
But
And-
we collaborated on several different short films throughout the last 10
Yeah.
years, and really that's what I was saying before, is we really learned to work together in such a great capacity. And it's like, especially when you're coming up in the industry, it's really hard because, I mean, in my experience, the hardest thing is to get people excited and interested in what you're doing as much as you are, because you're not paying anybody. Nobody's there to make money. In an ideal situation, everyone's there to make the film better. And that's the only reason I was comfortable co-directing this with Brian, is because we work so well together, and I trust him on set to hold the standard of quality that I hold. And when where I don't really trust where I haven't come across anyone else that I trust that much with it. So it's I think that's really the reason we were both so comfortable kind of diving into this project head first. The way we
Yeah,
did.
it was a true partnership, and that's something we've developed over many years.
Right. It took time.
Well, in listening to you talk, I mean, there's sometimes, especially when you were referring back to no one's ever going to see the first film that you ever created. When you look at this particular film, is there anything in particular that you would change and do differently?
We were discussing that on the way up, and there were a host of things that, looking back, you always can find ways to improve things and tweak things, but I think we're really happy with the way things turned out, and there's nothing really sort of that we regret in terms of making the project.
Right.
I think there are little things like
Right, with the set, and on set, and the budget and crew we had was a little nerve-wracking at times, because we had to wear a lot of hats, and a lot of people had to wear a lot of different hats, and we wouldn't have been able to make the movie if we didn't have such a dedicated crew we had. But it just made things a little nerve-wracking at times, and we were saying that the worst part of the process was when we were done shooting. It had been such a crazy shoot that we were both kind of like had a bad taste in our mouth, and I was like, oh, we've done all this, we're not even going to have the movie we wanted to make.
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible. And only once we took a week off and then put a rough edit together, we were like, hey, this is pretty much
what we set out to do.
What we were trying to do.
Yeah, so that was a rewarding moment after all the toil and work.
Yeah, no, but the reason it came to that was that because we really did prepare as thoroughly as we could. I mean, we spent several months just making lists that we were checking off about, production design, props, wardrobe, art design, everything we kind of had to manage ourselves. So the fact that we put that time in was very rewarding in the end, because it did turn out, we did have the product we set out to have, and it all came when it was all said and done.
Well, great. Well, I know that right now I think we want to switch and have Savannah come in and
Awesome.
talk with her a little bit about the film Prodigy.
Absolutely.
Great, yeah. Well, why don't you stick
You want me to
here
stay?
and-
Okay.
Yeah.
You go.
Double team it. Thank you very much. Alex, can we give you one of these? Oh. Didn't have a mic.
Hi.
You are so adorable.
Thank you.
She gets that a lot.
Well, what's it like being the star, really, in this particular movie?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I was on set for a short film that I was doing when I found out I got a call back. And so everyone on the set was super excited because it was my first feature film. And I was super excited. And I remember I had to leave set early for the callback. And then when I booked it, I was actually in Sedona. And I was running around my house screaming. And it was super exciting because it was my first feature film and I'd never done anything this big, and so I was super excited.
She was running around screaming all on our set too.
Okay, that's really hard to believe, especially for the kind of movie it is. So was it really hard for you to get in that particular role for this movie?
Not really. It was weird because it was easy for me to get into the role, but it was hard for me to get out. So there would be times after we were done, after I was wrapped, I'd be at home sometimes and I'd sort of still be in the character and my mom would be like, snap out of it.
Well, it's funny because when we saw Savannah, she had a reel up, and there was some stuff on there that was, more emotional than you saw from a lot of kids that we saw that had reels at that age. And that was one of the things her mom had told us when they first came in, was that she's very good at getting into kind of a more emotional and kind of more serious place, which was obviously what we were looking for. And so it was actually surprising to me, because she'd come to set and would be hyper and jumping around, and I would have to swing her around 3 times before she'd sit down. But then she would sit down in that chair, and those eyes go dead, and she starts being creepy, and you're like, what is happening here? It was quite the transformation.
So, what kinds of things went through your mind, or how did you actually prepare for this particular role?
Well, I just sort of thought about sad things that had happened in the past, and it helped me get into the sort of scary, sad on the inside but creepy on the outside kind of role. And yeah,
she had from early on we had a term where her mom could always just say, give us the what were they, the creepy eyes?
Demon eyes.
Demon eyes, that's what it was, and she could just turn it on immediately. And she scared a lot of people that way.
I do it all the time.
Well, it's hard to believe because you don't look scary to me. And I'm kind of glad you're like this and not like the other person. Well, I do want to open it up to the media for questions. I'm sure everybody here might have some questions.
Absolutely.
Could we see the demon eyes?
Can you do them? She'll break the camera.
Things go flying across the room.
Yeah, careful.
Yes.
Alfred Hitchcock always said that when you cast a movie, that's the point when it goes downhill. But from what you said earlier, I get the impression it went in the other direction with Savannah. Did she enrich the film in ways that you never expected when you were writing it?
And do you want to repeat, or just
No,
kind
go
of?
ahead.
Okay. I mean, absolutely. That was like we were saying earlier. It was paramount for us. That was the first thing we did after the script was done, was to say, okay, we need to find our kid, and we were ready to spend months doing it because we just didn't know if that was something that was going to be easy to find, and obviously it wasn't. And then, so once Savannah came, it was actually kind of a reinvigoration for us, because we had, I think, started to be okay with the idea that, okay, we're not going to get exactly what we wanted out of this. We're just going to kind of have to make something work. And then we saw Savannah's tape, and all of a sudden it was like, holy cow! This is even better than what we wanted. So I think that it kind of gave us an extra boost of confidence that what we had set out to do was actually going to work.
Savannah, tell them about when we sat around and watched clips of Anthony Hopkins and Silence of the Lambs.
That was a scary time. That was not fun. We were sitting at our dining room table, and he showed me these clips, and I was scared, and so I ran into my room and hid.
But was
I
it,
couldn't sleep that night.
Did it help you think?
Yeah, a little bit. It was scary.
Were there some big changes that you had to make in the script, transitioning from a male lead to a female?
No, not really. I mean, that's why it was kind of an easy choice for us when we made it. I had to go through and change all the he's to hers in the script, which was annoying. But besides that, I mean, once it's settled into being a girl, it actually was probably, now it seems like it was the right decision all along, and we were foolish for ever making it a boy. So it really was a much easier process than, for some reason we had it in our head that it should be a boy, but once we had kind of gotten an idea of what was out there, it became clear really quickly that, and then once we saw the girls' audition tapes, it was like, okay, this should definitely be a girl, because it's going to be better on a lot of different levels, I think.
Could you just speak to the element of critical studies in film and how important that is to balance out the camera-driven and then the impact of your film?
Yeah, absolutely. We spent a lot of time working on the script. We spent, I think, over a year actually, from the time we had first started outlining to actually having a script that we felt comfortable with. And that's my background is in film analysis and history, and so I watched every movie I can get my hands on that I thought could influence us at all to try and really study. The way I like to do it is I like to study what is good about what works within that genre and the conventions of those kind of things, and also what doesn't work and what pitfalls to avoid. And so I know we spent a lot of time doing that, and we spent a lot of time trying to add layers to the script that were not just the surface level of what was going on. And we studied a lot of film and tried to keep it's a movie with a lot of dialogue, so we wanted to keep the subtlety there within that. That was really important to us. And so the technical stuff is obviously a huge part of it. But we spent, in terms of just sheer man hours, I think we spent a lot more time researching and studying and trying to improve the quality of the narrative and those critical elements of it before we were ever ready to point a camera at anything.
It was beautifully shot as well.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Well, Savannah, what's coming up next for you?
Well, I'm really excited because I just finished filming a national commercial for Universal Studios Orlando, and we just found out that, so it started out, it was going to run on TV for all of 2017, but now we found out it's running for all of 2017 and 2018.
Nice.
Wow.
So it's running for 2 years, so I'm really excited.
We've been getting a lot of texts like, hey, that creepy girl from your movie is now smiling on a water slide.
Now she's having fun at Universal Studios.
We're hoping,
Be careful.
right, we're hoping it doesn't undercut her
Just don't
creepiness.
cross her path.
Right, exactly. Don't get in her way in line.
Well, I do want to say, I know you used to live here in Sedona, and Sedona does miss you, even though you've made a home in LA as well. So it's such a pleasure talking with you. And Alex, when is your film being shown here at the film festival?
It's playing Wednesday night at 6:20 and then Saturday at 6:10. So it's at the kind of 6 o'clock slot on Wednesday and Saturday.
Okay, and the film is Prodigy?
Prodigy, and it's at Harkins both times.
Great, great. Well, it's great to have you, Alex, and Savannah, and also Brian, and I want to thank you both for being here. And we'll be back with more live from the Sedona International Film Festival.